For the Miami Hurricanes to make a push for a college football playoff spot this year, does it all fall on Cam Ward's shoulders?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Truth Teller Thursday. I'm Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, writer for allhurricanes.com and co-host of Locked On ACC. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. On this episode, we'll answer a ton of questions about Miami's offense, about the chemistry. There's also some notes on Miami's D dropped by Lance Guidry, the defensive coordinator this week, that I think we need to dive into a little bit. We'll talk about a Miami recruiting target who seems to be trending strongly to the enemy, trending strongly to the Florida Gators. But we've got to start out with something as we bring on the truth teller himself, Bruce Warner. So, Bruce, sometimes I don't think the role of a starting quarterback can or should be understated because it is the most important position in football. But sometimes the media will just put everything on a quarterback. And we're going to talk about this new article written about Miami's Cam Ward. But Bruce, if Miami's going to make a college football playoff spot this year, and hopefully they can at least push for one with 12 teams now getting into the dance, does it all fall on Cam Ward?
No, it doesn't all fall on him, but he's obviously the most important player because we've had poor quarterbacking or a lack of clutch quarterbacking in the last 20 years. I mean, there's been some moments, Brock Berlin's comeback against the Gators, but for the most part, and especially with Van Dyke, they were very predictable. With Cam Ward as the quarterback, you have no idea what's going to happen. You could have the best defensive scheme, and he can make something out of nothing. And so that's why this is different. He's the most important player on the team, but it's not all up to him. We have to have the line. He has to have blocking. He's got to have the receivers, get the running back, and the defense has to do well. So it's a team effort in terms of that. But is he the single most important player? Of course. How can he not be?
Yeah, so here, there's this new piece on ESPN Insider that actually ranks, and this is all of college football, not strictly a Miami thing or strictly an ACC thing. They ranked the 25 most important players in the country for the college football playoff race. And not only did Cam Ward crack the list, Bruce, he cracked the top 10. Cam Ward came in at number 8. They write, not only does Ward take on one of the more high-pressure jobs in college football, and then they note, it always feels like Miami's just a big-time quarterback away from a surge, and it never quite feels like the quarterback comes through, they note. But Ward also does so as the preseason ACC Player of the Year. Now, they added something interesting to the end of this article. They say, there's other high-profile players on the field like defensive end Ruben Bain. They write he's a star. Miami plays only one projected top 30 team on the road this year. They write if Ward lives up to his billing, and if he's allowed to, they say, the Hurricanes could make their own game-changing leap. But this is a rake we've stepped on before, they say on my. But I thought it was interesting how ESPN, they even write in parentheses, if Ward is allowed to. Like, it seems like they have some doubts as to whether Mario and Shannon Dawson are really going to let him play. Bruce, I think people will be pleasantly surprised about that because I've had conversations with Ward about this. One of the reasons why he chose Miami in the first place was their willingness to let him lead his way, to collaborate with the offense. And he's been collaborating a lot with Shannon Dawson on the plays that he likes to run and the way Cam likes to play quarterback. So I think people will be pleasantly surprised that maybe that quarterback killer narrative that Mario Cristobal carries with him, for whether it's fair or unfair, he carries that quarterback killer narrative. Maybe that gets stifled this year.
But how funny is it that all last year I kept on talking about Dawson, and here we are a couple of weeks before kickoff, and there's articles, national articles, about they're concerned about is they going to take the reins off over the shackles off of Ward. Yeah, I think that's the $64,000 question. But do I think they're going to let him do what he wants? Yes. He's an improvisational quarterback. He doesn't have to take 3 steps and turn around. on any given play, he can make something out of nothing, which is, to me, the biggest difference between him right now and Van Dyke, who just, you didn't know what was going to happen with him. This kid, yeah, I'm very worried about those turnovers. He had a lot of turnovers, and I hope that stops. But to answer your question, yeah, he's the ringleader, and I do worry about the play calling. We'll see Florida. I mean, he was spectacular against Texas A&M.
Yeah.
And in the last game against Boston College before the bowl game, what happened?
He threw a lot of interceptions. I mean,
all right. So then I think I saw a question about Florida's defense. If you're Florida's defensive coordinator, you're looking at Georgia Tech film. You look at that too deep stuff that they played, and they kept everything in front of them, and they made us drive.
Right.
Van Dyke didn't do it. He just got, he threw a couple of picks, and bang, we lost that game.
But I think that's the difference. Was Miami had a quarterback who couldn't read coverages last year. I think this one can. So I don't know if Georgia Tech obviously was able to completely neutralize Tyler Van Dyke. Hopefully that can't be done the same way with Ward.
Well, I also think that any defense that's going to scheme strictly to shut down our running game is in real trouble, because one of the questions they're going to put 8 in the box. Go ahead. But that's why I keep saying the offense is so difficult. They're loaded at every position. I saw you with Brian yesterday talking about the advantages of our line, their receivers. I don't think the Gators are better than us on any position on our offense.
Right.
And I don't care what their defense looks like. I just have a hard time believing they could stop it. And we could throw so many looks at them. They can't come in and play a base 4-3. They'll get killed. Right. So, I'm answering your question, but again, I'm looking at this through, I guess, the green and orange glasses that I always wear.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know anybody who could talk me out of this. I mean, there's guys listening can comment later. Who's going to stop us? Maybe Florida State. I don't think Florida could stop us.
Now, another thing, you talk about Miami's receivers. This actually came out yesterday afternoon. The Biletnikoff Award watch list. Miami's the only team that has 3 receivers who made that list. Xavier Restrepo, Sam Brown, who transferred from Houston, Jacoby George. So they got the weapons. So I guess the way I would turn this around, Bruce, that I think we can both agree that Cam Ward is the most important piece. If you're talking about bridging the gap from what was a Jekyll and Hyde team last year, a 7-5 regular season team,
and a Jekyll and Hyde quarterback.
Yeah, sure. But for a team that didn't sniff a 14 playoff last year, but definitely has expectations this year to at least hang around and potentially be a top 12 team in the new playoff field. Aside from Cam Ward, what's the most important player or the most important part of the field? Because Bruce, I think if Miami's line of scrimmage play lives up to their potential, it's not sexy to write about that, right? Like, you're not going to see too many ESPN articles about, oh, hey, we think Miami can make the playoff because they've got arguably the best pass rush in the country. That doesn't get clicks the way that the Cam Ward stuff does. But what would you say is the next important factor if Miami's going to be a playoff team? Because I say line of scrimmage on both sides.
I hate to agree with you, Alex, but I agree with you.
I know you hate to agree with me.
No, I don't. I love you. But you know what? I do think the offensive line, because you ain't going to run. They're not going to run, and they're not going to be able to throw if the offensive line's not good.
Right.
But I have expectations that they're going to be very good. And, I still think no matter what defense Dawson sees out there, he can change the play. And we have the weapons all around. It's not like we have no running back, but great receivers. I think we're very good all the way around. So, the line, both lines, especially on defense, because you have to protect your DBs. They're young.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'd love to see us get in the backfield using only 4 and not having the blitz.
A couple notes, by the way, on the line of scrimmage. So Miami offensive line coach Alex Mirabal has said that he feels that they've got 8 or 9 guys who are capable of playing at a high level, which is great because you essentially have like a full backup rotation. This is the exact quote from Mirabal. We have 8 or 9 guys right now that we feel can go compete on a Saturday. So having the luxury of essentially having 2 offensive line units, and that's meeting Alex Mirabal's very high standard, right? It's not just any offensive line coach. And then Bruce, going over to the defensive line.
Wait, before you switch over, but didn't they put Mawanoa at the left guard spot and they moved Samson Okunlola to the right tackle spot.
Yeah.
So that's what they keep talking about, these interchangeable parts. You got to do that.
Yeah.
And maybe they're better off like that.
Yeah, well, we'll see what they do. I mean, they like to cross train so much. Like I like to tell people, if you hear like a leak from a reporter about, oh, this is what Miami's offensive line, this is how they lined up in the 5th or 6th training camp practice of the year, you should never read too much into that, because Mirabal likes to cross train guys everywhere. But I'm with you on liking the combination that you could sell me on an idea of, hey, starting Samson Okunlola at right tackle and moving Maui Noah, who's going to be good anywhere he plays, to left guard.
Try to stop a run around the left side with Rivers.
Yeah.
And Maui Noah, good luck. That's where you're going on short yardage situations. I like that idea. But, maybe the kid doesn't want to play guard. You make more money in the NFL playing tackle.
Yeah, but
I don't think Mirabal gives a damn about that right now.
Yeah, well, no, and didn't Penei Sewell start his career as a guard, and then he ended up moving to tackle, and he's the top guy in the NFL now. So it's not always about how you start your young career. It's about where you finish. And then on the defensive line, there's no question Miami's loaded at the edge. Like Miami's basically got 3 units of edge rushers who could all play at a really high level. In the interior, early returns, of course, but I'm pretty encouraged by what I'm seeing from Simeon Barrow, like how he looks physically. And I haven't been able to watch a padded practice yet, so take this with a grain of salt. But I'm encouraged by Simeon Barrow. I was encouraged by C.J. Clark and Marley Cook going back to spring football. So I think Miami's gonna hold up better at defensive tackle. And Justin Scott, by the way, Lance Guidry described Justin Scott as a dancing bear. Like that guy is just uncommon athleticism for a player that size. So hopefully Miami's interior defensive line lives up to what the exterior is going to do this year.
That was Russell Maroon's nickname. One of his nicknames was the dancing bear, and the other one was the conscience, because he was the conscience of the whole team. Nobody crossed Russell. But I saw something about Moton working out with a couple of the guys, working on his technique, and I think Bain, and working with Bain a lot. And I say this kid is the natural run stuffer. Let's see what he does. Maybe he gets into too deep this year. It's possible.
Well, we got a lot more coming up. Yes, absolutely it is. We got a lot more coming up on this episode of Locked On Canes. We're going to answer more of you guys' questions, the Locked On Canes Insiders. We're going to talk about a recruiting target who might be trending in a different direction. So you want to keep it locked right here, folks. We got the Truth Teller with us on a Truth Teller Thursday, and we're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. You want to keep it locked. And I'm only getting started with Game Time. Guys, the deals on Game Time, this is the only ticket app that I use. The deals get better the closer you get to the event. I get these notifications. Hey, are you still interested in Miami at Florida tickets? I am, but I'm watching those prices go down the closer we get to August 31st. Find out what makes Game Time so special. They're an official authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, by the way. You can get Marlins, like they're practically paying you to go to Marlins games now. The tickets are so cheap. $1 tickets, $4 tickets. So make sure you check those out. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more at Game Time. I love to get a panoramic view from my seat before I buy right there in the app. And guys, you can get all-in pricing, which means they can show you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you so much for making this Truth Teller Thursday episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcast. By the way, for your second listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. I co-host that show with Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. We're available free, much like this show, wherever you get your podcasts, and free on YouTube. So, Bruce, we don't know the timeline just yet. Might be sometime in the fall, but Miami has been competing with the Florida Gators for Gator legacy cornerback Ben Hanks Jr. His father was an excellent Gators player. And Gaby Urrutia from 24/7 just dropped a crystal ball in favor of Florida over Miami to land Hanks. I think Gaby just got off of paternity leave. It's like, bro, go back on paternity. If you're just going to come back and give us bad news, go back on paternity leave and stop giving us bad news, bro. But, I guess not too surprising, Bruce, because we know he had a great, not to downplay what Florida is doing here in recruiting, because apparently he had a great official visit there, but obviously the pull from the family is going to be very powerful for Ben Hanks. Yeah.
And who knows? I don't know whether he's going to come out and say, well, I'm committed to them, but let's see what happens with the coach, or because of the family, he's a Gator regardless.
Maybe.
I'm willing to bet that they already have a list of names that they're going to go after, because they may have to dump him during the season. So, but if Hanks goes there, that's okay, because look at all the guys we got already. Yeah. It certainly lessens the blow that if we don't get him, and I don't think we are.
Yeah. Well,
if I have a choice of all these guys, I may pick French as the guy I want the most.
Same.
Right?
He's the exact type of dominant 5-star receiver that we've been wanting down here. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I don't know how I feel about it. I just don't know. Yeah. The guy's he's wishy-washy. 1 minute he's here, 1 minute he's there. He did come like a week or so ago. So that's a good sign. But, we've already lost out to LSU a couple of times. Yeah. Texas, we don't lose out. We don't really compete with Texas that much.
Right.
They have guys out there that they're Texas kids, and that's just the way it's going to be. But all right, so what else do we have here?
All right, so we get a question from the Locked On Canes Insiders chat. And by the way, if you guys want to become a Locked On Canes Insider, I include a link in the show description below. Click that link. You get text messages directly from my phone to yours with breaking news, recruiting scoops, show updates, one-on-one questions and answers. We answer questions from the show. Try it free for 14 days. And then if you like it, you can opt in for $4.99 a month on the Locked On Canes Insiders chat. So a question, we've been hearing a lot about Simeon Barrow and Tyler Barron, not as much about Elijah Alston. How's he looking? Now, Bruce, I think the reason why I haven't talked about Alston as much is because I covered him all spring. And so sometimes I get distracted by the shiny new objects. And I'm like, I better tell people about Barrow and about Barron, because they weren't here in the spring. And maybe I'm not talking about Elijah Alston as much. Elijah Alston is a stud. I mean, Bruce, he was the highest rated FBS pass rusher last year, according to Pro Football Focus.
Higher than Barron.
Yeah.
But he's in the rotation. He's in the 2 deep.
He might start. I mean, we don't know for sure yet.
Yeah, he might start. And we still don't know about Messidor, although I saw some video about he's doing really, really well. He's been in the inside. He's been on the outside. That's going to be another, like the offensive line, although much more so on the defensive line, rotating guys in and out. Ends playing in the inside, Bain going to the inside, then switching out. Yeah, I think they could do very well, especially if they stunt up front, because those guys have speed. They're all pretty damn fast. I don't know about Barrow, but I heard he's playing really, really well. Really well.
The guy's gigantic. He's
gigantic.
He's huge. When I saw him in person, I'm like, okay, I get it. Like I get it now why this guy was so sought after. Right. Oh man. All right, let's see what else we got here from the Locked On Canes Insiders. This is an interesting one, Bruce. I know you're not a big Miami Dolphins fan, but we get this question: who will have the more successful season overall, the Canes or the Dolphins, and why? Now, Bruce, this is such an interesting question because there's high expectations for both teams. A lot of people down here think the Dolphins should win the division this year, that they should actually win some playoff games this year. Obviously there's expectation.
Who is that?
What the expectations?
Yeah, the people in the halfway house where you're staying right now. Is that who?
The fan. but I will note that there's a notable difference, because like the way the Dolphins team is being built, it's like a track team, and not. And they got a tight end. They got 3 receivers that are all like track stars. But you worry more about the line of scrimmage with the Miami Dolphins, right? Yep. So again, I think the Dolphins can be really good this year, and maybe I'm a little biased with my orange and green color glasses on, but I think just in terms of the build, the way that the Hurricanes are building from the inside out with the trenches, where the Dolphins are more building on like the shiny pieces at cornerback and receiver. I feel a little bit better about the spine of the Miami Hurricanes. I think that team is built to be physical, where the Dolphins are built to be a track team, essentially.
I agree. And even though it was cold as really cold in Kansas City. They took Miami apart. They dominated the line of scrimmage. Miami has needed to have – they lost Sue. They lost a couple of people the last couple of years in the trenches. They need to build it up. The kid they got from Penn State, I never really thought he was that good to be a first-round pick like that. They need –
he is practicing well. Chop Robinson.
Yeah,
He's every yeah.
But, they still need to stuff the run, which they're having a hard time with. So I'm picking the Canes. I think they're going to win at least 10 games. Now the Dolphins have 17 games. They could win 12 and lose 5. Miami wins 12. They lose 0. So, but I still think Miami's going to have a better season.
Well, and to the person who asked me that question, I want you to send that question to Kyle Krabs, who does an incredible job. Locked on Dolphins is a great show on this network. Ask that question to Kyle Krabs and see if he gives a different answer, because maybe I'm a little more Hurricanes bias, maybe Kyle's a little more Dolphins bias, but I'm also a Dolphin fan. I don't know. I believe a little bit more overall in the build for the Hurricanes right now.
By the way, we were supposed to have Dale Dawkins on the show, and I called him. He said yes. I texted him. He said yes. Yeah. I kept on trying to call him last night, and he didn't get back to me. So I'll call him later and yell at him. But he did say that we can get passes to the tailgate party where all the former Canes are going to be. And then we could just give him out to whoever. So maybe for my portion, we should give him out to all the people who dislike me.
That's a lot of passes.
Yeah. And then get him over there. And then while I watch Will Fork and I watch Mark and I watch Leon and I watch McKinney kick their asses. No, but he said it's okay, so we'll do it.
That's awesome. I got a question. I know you like this one, Bruce. We talked about this one before the show. This is from our guy Pat Mack, who's an everydayer. He's awesome. He says, "Hey, could you address this question I had about the possibility of going to a 2-back set sometimes? I think that with the running back room that we have, it could possibly present a nightmare for opposing defenses, especially if you throw Elijah Lofton into the mix. Thanks for all you do for us getting through the long off season," he said. We're almost there, Pat Mack. But as far as far be it from us to tell Shannon Dawson how to do his job, but getting 2 of Miami's backs on the field at once, Bruce, that's got to happen sometimes.
It's going to happen. I did see it when I was outside when we were at the practice a few months ago. They are going to put 2 once in a while. It may even be Fletcher and Martinez. But more than that, it's going to be Martinez and Johnson. You got a guy who can run up the gut and a guy who can get to the outside. They could play fake. They could throw little swing passes. They can bring people up in the box to do that and not even use a running play. They could still go deep. So they're looking to set other teams up. They're looking for our offense to dictate what the defense does, not the other way around. They want to do what they want to do. There'll probably be a lot less play calls that are changed at the line of scrimmage, where we always see them looking to the sideline, getting a play, and they have to hurry up and get the play off. I think they're going to be way more organized and more prepared and let the defense, react to what we do.
We got more to come on this episode of Locked On Canes, including a painful hypothetical that would involve losing that opening game against Florida. So this is going to be a tough one, folks. This is going to be a tough one. But you want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. And thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. Guys, after you check out Locked On Canes, Locked On ACC, also make sure you're checking out Locked On College Football. We have a show on this channel dedicated to talking about the national scene. And I try. Spencer McLaughlin hosts the show, does an awesome job. I turn up on his show occasionally, talking Miami. Spencer understands that the Canes are going to mean business this year. So make sure you check out Locked On College Football, available free wherever you get your podcasts. All right, so we got the truth teller, Bruce Warner, with us. All right, so Bruce, here is this hypothetical from Americane, who says, would we as Miami fans be okay dropping the Florida game if we went undefeated the rest of the season and made it to the ACC championship game and win it, giving us a first round bye for being a conference champion. He says, I know where I stand. What are your thoughts? So, Bruce, hypothetically, would you be okay of suffering the humiliation of a rivalry game to open up the season? I don't know if you have as many friends that are Gator fans as I don't know why I pick my friends terribly, but I've got enough Gator fan friends. They'll never let me hear the end of it if Miami loses that game. Are you okay dropping that game if it means running the table?
I'm never okay losing to the Gators. I don't like losing, period.
Right.
It happened in '83 when we lost to the Gators, and we ran it all the way to the title, beating Nebraska.
That's right.
So am I okay with it? If I know for a fact, if I actually had a one-on-one with God, and that's what he told me, I guess I would do it, knowing if we lose to the Gators, I'm not worried because we're going to win the rest of the games. But no, I don't want to lose to the Gators. I'll take my chances. You know,
it's like I take rivalry games so seriously. I wouldn't mind like Miami beating the Gators and beating Florida State and losing every other game just so we beat those guys.
No way.
I'm not serious. I
know you're not serious. No, but but you know, look, you don't want to lose to them. Not in the first game because it would put so much pressure on Mario. It would destroy the entire season because there'd be so much negativity.
And by the way, I think I have I've got a wager with Brandon Olson, who hosts Locked On Gators. I'm pretty sure that if Miami loses that game, I got to do my next show in Gator gear. So I don't want to do that. It'd be awful.
No, and we'll have to take it to court because you're not going to honor that agreement.
Thank you.
But look, I saw something on a Gator station on a YouTube. They were talking about it. They were Gator guys.
Yeah.
You know, they were saying that Florida's got better receivers than Miami. Is that true? I haven't really seen anything much from them, but they say the receivers are better.
They have good receivers, but are they better than what Miami's got?
I don't think so. Anyway,
I don't know.
The answer to that question is no. I wouldn't be happy with that. No, because I don't know what they're saying. What's the alternative? They beat Florida, but they go 9-3 and they don't get to the ACC title.
That's a great. We need an alternative. You're right about that. We need an alternative. Yeah. But I'm with you. I don't.
That's why I say no.
I don't want to lose
that game. What's the alternative?
We get this question from Storm Life about Emory Williams. It says, how is Emory Williams looking after his arm injury? Bruce, and you saw him in the spring. I saw him in the spring and the fall. You would never know he suffered an injury.
Not in the least, but I still think he's going to redshirt this year. I don't think they want him to lose his shirt.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Because somebody else asked a question about this, and I'll answer it. So somebody asked, who would be, God forbid something were to happen to Cam Ward, who would be the guy that they would call up to start the rest of the season? Now, here's the thing. So I think just in terms of who the regular backup quarterback is, it's got to be Poffenbarger because Emory Williams should shirt this year because he didn't redshirt last year. Right. At the same time, I think it's so close between Williams and Poff, the way that they practice. And I'm not taking anything away from Reese because I can't say for sure who's ahead of the other, but I will tell you Emory has been very competitive with Poffenbarger. So God forbid, if something were to happen to Ward and you need a new starting quarterback, I don't think it's impossible to say that they might say, you know what, Emory's the guy that we need to roll with for the rest of the season, and they would have to burn that. Now, obviously, we want Cam Ward to dominate and get through the season play, 12 games plus postseason. But if something were to happen there, I wouldn't rule out the idea that they would consider making Emory Williams the emergency starting.
Of course, but my gut tells me that if something happens to Ward, that Reese would get in there. And if he doesn't do well, they will not hesitate one bit to burn that shirt and let Emory play.
Right.
That's what I think. I think they want him to shirt. They're hoping that if Ward something happens, that Reese can go in there and get the job done. They don't have to burn the shirt. But so I agree. They may be equal, but that red shirt thing is hanging over their head, and I don't think they want to give him the shot because then he loses it.
Okay.
So I would give Poffenbarger, and it depends. If he gets hurt in game 11, it's only one more game left in the season. But if he gets hurt in game 1 or game 2, then but I still think it would be Reese and then Emory. That's what I think.
By the way, I got a very Donno specific question from one of our viewers and listeners, Alex, he's a University of Miami alum. and my mother was his academic advisor at Miami.
Oh, wow.
And my father was his statistics professor. And he asked me, who would win an academic decathlon between my mother and my father? Now, no disrespect to my mom. If you're watching this, I love you. But Bruce, my father has such an advantage. He's a mathematician. Like you can't have an academic decathlon and put the mathematician on the bench. Like, sorry, Mom, but it's Dad.
Right. That's good. That's funny. That's good. What about you? Where do you fall in all this?
You don't want me anywhere near an academic decathlon. Unless you're asking sports trivia, and that's it. You don't want me anywhere near that.
When I go on my cruises, I don't do the trivia.
Yes. I do the sports trivia.
Yeah,
I do the sports trivia. But then what always, like, I think I have won a couple, like, come first place in a couple sports trivias, but sometimes I come in second place because the NASCAR and horse racing questions trip me up, because like if they were to do sports trivia on the cruise ships where it's like, it's just like major sports like football, basketball, even soccer I'm very good with. But when they start throwing in like the track and field and horse racing questions and the auto racing.
I'm good at horse racing. I'm good at horse. Yeah, I used to go to the track. I used to get the
wow, good for you.
Everything. Yeah.
Did you go out there with Hank Goldberg?
Yes. I used to go.
I knew you would say yes.
Yes. Yeah, we sit up in Gulfstream together. Yes. Yeah. He's amazing. A big gambler. But he learned it like I learned it in Monmouth Park in New Jersey, which is where I used to hang out all the time. I had an aunt that was really close. She was down there all the time. She'd come back, stay away from this. She talked to the trainers, jockeys, the owners. She would talk. Well, this was like for the lack of a better word, a mob connection. So she taught me things like they would play the odds. They would screw around with the odds before the race started. Anyway, she came back one time. It was the last race. I had like $15 left. She says, I want you to wheel these 3 horses, the chalk and the 2 long shots. I was 12 years old, paid $13,000 on a $12 bet.
Good for you.
But I had to give her 10,000 of it.
I see.
So I had
at least you got. I mean, 3,000 for a 12-year-old kid, especially in those. What was that? The 1920s, back when you were 12 years old. That was a lot of money.
1912. Isn't that the year the Titanic sank?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Right around World War I, something
very
like that.
Nice. Thank you. Well, get your own guests from now on.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone for tuning in. We always appreciate Bruce. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button, hit that like button, subscribe. If you listen to the audio version, please make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, wherever you get your pods. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow. I think I'm going to be tracking down Gio Million tomorrow. He's been waffling on me a little bit. If not, we'll just have a good time and talk about God knows what. We'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked.
Let's get Bewitched to blink and do whatever she does and make it 3 weeks from today. So it'll be 48 hours away from kickoff.
That would be nice.
Yeah, we're still 20-something days away, 23 days. I can't wait.
Time is crawling. Well, time will sprint until our next episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.